Feel the need to apologize for this one ahead of time. You guys ever wonder what it would be like to date Turbo Granny? Of course not! No one is thirsting for Turbo Granny. I already know the answer to this one. Yeah, I'll say it. Come at me, Turbo Granny. I don't think you're that cute. As a related side note, I have been fighting in Sanai's corner for top GILF, and neither grandma from the Don is changing my mind. Also, if you haven't noticed, nice change in venue. Doing this from my parents' basement, because I not only came back from the holidays, but it was also a good idea to leave the apartment because of a recent infestation that needs to be infumigated. I will not elaborate. So yeah, Turbo Granny. Probably not a good idea. If you're new to this series where I teach you why it's a bad idea to date feminine cryptids, welcome, and a merry Crimbles from Antagonish. I typically do this by giving you a lowdown of the history of the supernatural being to begin with, and then I tell you their powers that they usually have associated with them, followed by how I think that society will treat them as soon as they enter it, just whether or not people would react in a good way, whether or not governments would react in a good way if Turbo Granny or multiple Turbo Grannies just started running around. And then I finish it up with my personal thoughts, which, if you couldn't tell, not the biggest fan. And with the exception of the one guy who commented it, I do not think anybody on this green earth would prefer taking Turbo Granny over Sanai. But okay, fine, see ya, Turbo Granny fans, more Sanai for me. And as always, I am not a comprehensive researcher or of sound mind, so do not use me for research videos or anything like that, because there's a very good chance that I am wrong. Or submit it as a research project. Use me for your college essays. Go ahead, flip that coin. Oh my god, imagine like I actually become somebody who is a professor for this sort of thing and I have to speak to audiences. I am very bad with crowds, so that's a very bad idea to begin with. Oh my god, that'd actually be a really awesome line of work. It's gotta be a thing, right? Like researchers of cryptids, they get paid for this sort of thing? I mean, I guess as somebody put it, YouTube already pays me to be wrong, so I guess I already have it. But I think I've stalled for enough time by now. So, let's get on to the origin story. Turbo Granny is a woman of many names, that being that of Turbo Bachan, the aforementioned Turbo Granny, the 100-kilometer hag, or the Sonic Boom Boomer. I made that last one up, but you could really go all day with these names. As you've no doubt picked up from watching Don, Turbo Granny is a yokai, that being a supernatural phenomenon of Japanese folklore, who is described as being a withered old woman with tattered clothes who runs up alongside you with the illest of intention. So imagine a really menacing-looking old lady with the speed of a car and possibly some glowing eyes, and you've got the Turbo Granny. So I'd say that Don probably has the most accurate representation to date.
Wow, he just said Grandma was dateable.
Actually, I'm pretty sure he's just referring to the day and not any kind of relationship.
Oh. Too late. Already horny.
That's fair. As far as an origin story goes, I've got two potential ones for you. And the first one is the main consensus among people who have researched Turbo Granny. From what I can gather, she is said to have originated from the highways of Mount Roko in Hyogo Prefecture, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, from possibly a creepypasta of the 2000s. So the biggest thing that I was surprised to learn about Turbo Granny is that she's not that old at all. Like, she was created maybe, giving it some leeway here, from the 80s to the early 2000s is probably when she got started. Or maybe you could say that she began right when cars were invented, or when cars started to become a really big thing in Japan, because it goes with her motif. But for the most part, her legend is about chasing people down who she thinks are going too fast. From articles that I've read, the summation of Turbo Granny suggests that she is a legend thought to have started as a cautionary tale about the recklessness of driving and the dangers of speeding and aggressive behavior on the road. And according to this specific legend, where she is chasing cars and trains, she will only chase cars or trains. She doesn't have a desire to steal your junk, and she doesn't have a desire to steal your ween or have you suckle on her teats. So my apologies to any Turbo Granny fans that are into that sort of thing, I guess.
Then what's the point?
Seems the only thing that the quick-legged crone is into is passing you, or surpassing you in any way, shape, or form. She just wants to race. However, there are two versions of Turbo Granny in this legend, that being the one that wants to pass you and only cares about racing and competition, which is kind of like the one in Dodon, and then you have the more aggressive version of Turbo Granny who chases you with the intent of causing accidents. So some variations of that legend include if you happen to be driving at night in Japan and you look in your rearview mirror, you may find Turbo Granny catching up to you because you were speeding, and she will try to run you off the road somehow. Just imagine her like running up next to the car, and then you look down, she's got the Sonic legs going on. The one article suggested that she might be driving a car, which, if yokai can drive cars, we're all screwed now. But I guess that would make more sense rather than just an old woman knocking on your window trying to run you off the road. Like, the only way I see that happening is if you were deathly scared of ghosts and you just wanted to swerve out of the way to try to get away from her, and then you end up going off a cliff or something. I guess it's possible, but just the idea of some withered demon grandma running you off the road just doesn't seem possible. I mean, you're in a car. I wish in America we had stuff like that. We just have regular speed limits, but if we had some kind of ghost that was said to haunt us if we go too fast, that'd be a lot more of an incentive than what we have over here, that's for sure. Imagine a world where law enforcement for speeding was in the hands of demons rather than in the hands of local law enforcement. It's hard to say whether or not one would have better success over the other. I really don't know. But to sum up, the first origin story of Turbo Granny suggests that she's an urban legend that was created to scare people from speeding. Otherwise, they would suffer misfortune or an accident of some sort. This second origin story is largely an idea that I got from fellow YouTuber Jake Jones, who brings up something that's referred to as ubasute. Ubasute, from what I can gather, is the rather dark and unfortunate practice of abandonment. So, in times of famine, plague, or just any kind of hardship whatsoever, what would happen is, to give yourself less mouths to feed, you would take your elderly, your grandmother, grandfather, or just any elderly person whatsoever associated with you, take them to the summit of a mountain, and abandon them there to wither away. But if the legend was created as recently as it was, I don't think that it has anything to do with it. So it's very possible that she was just created via creepypasta that got out of hand and then created this whole myth today that we know of as Turbo Granny. But the way I see it, if you do say that she was a being that was abandoned in the mountains, it could potentially add a more human side to her. Jake Jones goes over this in his video as well, and I highly recommend giving that a watch because he does a better job at explaining this than I do. But it would explain why in Dodon it seemed that Turbo Granny had a soft spot for the girls that were victimized in a tunnel. If we were to accept the ubasute theory is correct, it's possible that maybe she just has a soft spot for anybody who's been tragically lost as a result of being left behind or just been in a terrible accident. She'll get fed up watching somebody barrel down a highway faster than they should be, but possibly as a result of genuine care and not wanting to see younger generations pass away tragically in a way that, in her eyes, would be an entirely avoidable mistake. But as heartwarming as that theory is, I'm calling BS on it because she causes the accidents. So if she does have genuine care, she is a hypocrite. Or maybe she just sees it as the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the people that happen to cross my path kind of thing. So she eliminates one threat in order to warn the rest. So thanks, Turbo Granny. And that's just about everything I have on Turbo Granny's origins and backstory. I was hoping to get more information on her, but it's just about as simple as it gets. She's an old woman who chases cars on the street and then tries to challenge you. And in some cases, this could result in disaster. For you. As far as Turbo Granny's powers, she's able to run fast as a car, or a train for that matter. And the other power that I have is very similar to the mermaid. She might conjure up bad omens, or she's just very unlucky to be around, because apparently if you see her, there's a good chance that you'll end up in a car crash. Alright, fun time. How do I think that society would react if there was a Turbo Granny or many Turbo Grannies that now existed? Probably not well. Or maybe it wouldn't start off too bad, because vehicular accidents happen every day, but once they find out that the hurried hag had something to do with it and they have someone to blame for their problems, then they'd probably call on governments to do something about it, to which it's hard to say what they'd do. I don't think that there'd be armed guards on the highways or anything that keep turbo grannies away, or just people armed with Ghostbusters vacuums on highways to keep the roads clear. Oh, maybe that would be the case. Maybe you would have turbo granny squads, like how they have snowplows that push snow off the roads. You'd have people that are designated volunteers or designated paid government jobs where they'd run around with turbo granny suckers, or I guess something to get her away, and clear the roads so that way business can perform as usual. I think that a lot of supernatural nuts would want to try to talk to her and interview her and interact with her in some way, but it's not like she's a casual monster girl. She's an old lady. I don't know what she'd be into. I may not have gotten much information on her, but from what I can gather, her entire afterlife is about her chasing cars. So I don't think that she has a life outside of that, and I don't know if we'll see a turbo granny just casually chilling on the beach or playing canasta at the retirement home. I think that a lot of them are just going to be all about their job, and they won't have any time for any relationships whatsoever. Just another nuisance on the highway that you have to look out for. That's how I think society would react. Now, how would I react? No, I wouldn't date her. My answer is still no. I am not going to date Turbo Granny because she seems mean, and she's also a nag. If her job is all about chasing down cars, she's not going to have time for me. It's like, unironically, a really bad decision. Or maybe if you go the Dodonodon route and then you put her in a separate body where she's, I guess, free of her obligation to look after a remote tunnel in a rural area, and you get to hang out with her more. It might be fun and somewhat cute to see her interact with some of our new technology and realize that she doesn't know how to work a phone. So maybe if you can crack that tsundere shell, it's possible that she has a good personality underneath and it'd be fun to interact with her. Or maybe it's all based on perspective. Like, maybe you could see what she does as an active duty that she's willing to perform to the very end, and that's attractive, I suppose. Like, she sees younger generations eating Tide Pods, deep-throating cinnamon, and doing Fortnite emotes, and she's like, alright, you know what, if social Darwinism isn't gonna get rid of them, then I will. Growing up is realizing the supernatural bloodthirsty monsters might have had a point. But hey, if you're into older women with a strong personality and stronger endurance, go for it. Don't let me stop you. Just don't expect her to steal your balls, because Turbo Granny in our world can't do it. But anyway, that's all I got for you. Sayonara, oh god, what the...